And we're joined by North Country Assemblyman Billy Jones this week. Welcome.
Good to be here.
I want to ask you about the impact COVID is having on many families who have lived through this pandemic for a full year now, and if they're struggling to stay in their homes. But first, with so much happening in Albany in the recent days with the governor, the number of lawmakers calling for Governor Cuomo to resign increased this past week.
These allegations should be taken very, very seriously and investigated. I have said we need to have transparency and investigate these allegations. If it becomes an issue where the governor cannot govern and we have issues with going through this budget process where he can't do his job, certainly he should step aside. There's no doubt about that.
He did address the allegations last week during his COVID briefing and apologized, saying he was sorry that he made the women feel uncomfortable, but he denied touching any of them in an inappropriate way. Were you satisfied with his explanation and his apology?
No, because that's why I want to see this investigation start immediately and get going. But I mean, apologizing for something doesn't mean it was okay to do. We also have a nursing home data scandal going on here that the administration needs to answer questions on. So there's a lot going on. We have to get answers to this. We have to get some answers for the people whose lives have been affected by this. And the governor needs to be held accountable for that. No question about it.
The Democratic leaders in both the Assembly and Senate announced this past week an agreement on a bill to revoke the governor's expanded emergency powers, those powers given to the governor early on during the pandemic. Republicans unhappy, though, saying that the deal that was worked out with the governor and Democratic leaders actually extends his emergency powers beyond the April 30th deadline. Is that true? Is that the case?
First of all, I want to be very transparent here. I have been calling for revoking the governor's expansive powers under this pandemic since last August or July. The bill is not perfect by any means, but it is a start to getting back to legislative oversight in some of these powers, and also, I would say, a representative government, a co-equal branch and representative government for the people. That's what I've been calling for since July. It's a start. It's not perfect. But now we can go through each one of these executive orders, and there are a lot of them. There are a couple hundred of them that have been issued since the pandemic started. We can go through each one of them and see how that affects our residents, see whether that should be kept in place or not. We talked about vaccination. I like the fact that retired nurses and EMTs and other people can give vaccinations. That's an executive order. Do we want to mess with that? No. So the plan of just, revoking all these powers, probably not a good idea.
The scandal surrounding the governor, what impact is that having on lawmakers and your ability to work on the budget, which is due at the end of the month?
Not so much right now. We're going through, our conference is going through getting our one house budget, which we will have next week on the floor. We're going through line by line, seeing what we want in there for a package. So I don't know if you'll really see how much it's affecting until we get to the, in the middle of March, the negotiations on it. But certainly we need to concentrate on budgetary items. What my residents here are saying in the district, they're talking about vaccinations. They're talking about getting their kids back into school safely. They're talking about infrastructure. They're talking about all these things. We're talking about opening up small businesses, making sure that they can continue to operate, talking about the economy, talking about the stimulus package that's coming that will help our residents out. That's mainly what people in my district are talking about, and that's what I try to concentrate on.
It looks as if that stimulus package will provide about $12.5 billion to New York State. Will that be incredibly helpful when it comes to addressing the multi-billion-dollar deficit the state's dealing with right now?
Helpful is an understatement, but certainly that is going to help our finances out. The governor put in his original budget $6 billion of federal aid, $3 billion for last year, $3 billion for this next year budget. We're thinking that maybe $6 billion split now, so that certainly helps out things. And what I really like in this package as well, I've always called for state and local aid. You're going to see our counties and our towns receive direct aid from the federal government, and that's what they want. They want direct unrestricted aid from the federal government. It looks like we're headed towards that path. I do not want to see it, I don't want to see New York State Division of Budget get their hands on that either. It'll probably have to be a pass-through, but it should be a direct pass-through to those towns, villages, and counties.
You were disappointed with the governor's decision not to support the broadband study that would have analyzed coverage around the state looking for gaps. He declined to support the bill. He did say he was going to put funding in the budget, though, but now it appears that he hasn't done that. Is there any talk of trying to put some funding in the budget?
Absolutely. We've asked for $3 million for the broadband funding, which that bill clearly said. And whenever the governor vetoes a bill, he usually says it's fiscal. Even if it's not fiscal, he usually, comes up with some reasoning around, well, this should have been put in the budget. And I'll put it in. He clearly said, I'm working on it. I'll work it out. He didn't. So we're hoping in our one house in the assembly that when he gets there. But the more important thing with this is the importance of this bill is to make sure that we have accurate data here. That is not the case. The state keeps saying, ESD keeps saying, the governor keeps saying we're at 98% coverage. We know that that is not true. So it's important to have this data. And we're talking about census blocks. If census blocks is covered by satellite or something, that we're counting that as coverage. We don't count that as coverage. We want this to make sure that people have access to good internet service. And we're going to prove that in a lot of these areas, they don't. We need to make sure they do.
There are billions of dollars for child care in the federal stimulus bill, but the Child Care Coordinating Council of the North Country reached out to lawmakers. They're asking for $1.5 million in emergency funding in this budget for child care for families affected by the pandemic who are having real issues. They're struggling with getting to work and caring for their kids, especially if they have kids home doing remote learning. So they put that appeal out to you. Is there any hope that that might be a step to try to help them out short term?
We're working on it, and certainly we're encouraged by some of the numbers we're seeing in the budget to get there. I will say I've been an advocate for funding of child care and child care facilities ever since I got this job. Certainly we need to make sure, pre-pandemic we had child care issues here in the North Country and in New York State, to be frank with you. But obviously through the pandemic, everything is, the light has been, is shining on everything, and we need to make sure that we fund child care appropriately. Like I said, it's not only the right thing to do, we have to do it. We have to make sure our children are taken care of. But child care equals economic development. It helps our economy when we have proper child care in place. It certainly does, So it's not only the right thing to do to take care of our children and our families, but it also helps our economy.
Child care is one issue. Also, during the pandemic, have seen a number of families dealing with paying their rent, paying their mortgages, paying their taxes. It seems housing insecurity, according to the United Way, has been a real problem we've seen as the pandemic has gone on. You did a fun event a couple of weeks ago where you went to the Minor Institute and you smooched with a cow. That helped raise...
Not my first one, Tom, but yes.
That raised money for this particular issue. The United Way saying that they really are seeing this as an issue that families are struggling with right now.
Certainly. And you mentioned it was a fun event, and it was. But I think the more important thing is it puts a spotlight on and puts publicity towards what the goal of what the United Way and what we are trying to achieve. And there's a lot of people that are struggling with housing right now. A lot of people have struggled with housing in the past, but certainly any money that we can get to help keep people in their homes, we should be doing.
We talked a little earlier with Mark Hamilton with Plattsburgh Housing Authority. He's preparing for the fact that they may see more families affected by this in the months to come, even as we get out of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Do we have enough affordable housing in the North Country? And is the affordable housing here in good enough shape, or is that a crisis, as some people have called it?
I don't think we have enough, no. And I think a lot of the housing that we have, as you mentioned, needs improvement. So we need to continue to work on that. And I know housing is a huge issue in the New York State Assembly. They We keep trying to put resources towards that. Also, we're going to see some federal stimulus money go towards that as well, which will be very helpful. We continue to try to address this for sure.
The rollout of the COVID vaccine has its critics, but are things moving smoothly now? Are we seeing more vaccine getting to the North Country, not only at the mass vaccination site run by the state over at the airport, but are the health departments now getting doses, and is that allowing them to have their own clinics and reach out to some of the folks maybe that have transportation issues or elderly folks who live in more rural, remote parts of the county, and it's harder for them to get to that site at the airport?
Yeah, sure. When it rolled out, I mean, with the website and everything that was going on, I was the biggest critic out of anybody, saying the rollout was not good. It was actually terrible. I can say now things are going a lot better. You ask anybody about that site out in right here in Plattsburgh, the state site, they will give it 2 thumbs up, which I'm very happy to hear. We're getting more vaccinations. We encourage people to reach out to my office because what we're seeing is a lot of elderly people, when they go to sign up on the site itself, they don't have emails in some instances. Some people can't operate through the website. We encourage them to reach out to us. We're also teaming up with Senior Planet and Oates to help people out with that. So I encourage people, call my office if you can't get through on the website, please, and we'll get you to those resources, and we'll even provide transportation for you. We need to do this.